Hi everybody, this is Bonnie Barker with Bonnie Bay Crochet, and I wanted to show you how to make the arrows and popcorn super scarf today. This scarf has a lot of length with it, which can be very fashionable and fun to wear. Not only that, but it can make a delightful wrap that actually stays in place, keeping you nice and warm. Well, let me go ahead and show you what you're going to need. For this project, I'm going to be using Plymouth Yarn's Encore Chunky yarn. This is a number 5 weight. Now, if you want to use a lighter weight yarn, feel free to do that, but make sure that you match your hooks to the yarn that you choose. This particular yarn is 75% acrylic, 25% wool. Each of these skeins has approximately 143 yards. Look across the bottom of the screen and I'll tell you approximately how many of these I needed for this project. For this project, I'm going to be using 2 crochet hooks. I'm going to be starting with the size K, which is a 10.5 or 6.50 millimeters. And then I will also be using a larger hook. This is going to be for the popcorn section. And this is a US size 11 or L, and that is 8.00 millimeters. Okay, and as always, I am recommending that you have a yarn needle and a pair of sharp scissors handy. To begin, I'm going to be using the smaller of the 2 hooks. This is the size K or 10.5 or 6.50 millimeters. Go ahead and start with a slip knot. And we're going to start with a starting chain of 242 chains. Now, people often ask me whether they can shorten or lengthen their projects. If you add multiples of 12 to the starting chain, to the existing starting chain, you can make it longer, and should you wish to shorten it, you can shorten it by subtracting multiples of 12 from the 242 chains. Now that I've completed my 242 chains, I wanted to say one thing about this, and that is make sure that you crochet this as loosely as possible, within reason, because you want to be able to work in it effectively and you don't want it to be too tight. If you are one of those crocheters that has a hard time and you crochet really tight chains, you may want to bump up to the larger size hook for the starting chain and then return back to the smaller size hook for rows 1, for the first several rows. Okay, so to start row 1, we're going to start in the second chain from the hook, and we are going to work a single crochet in that chain and in each chain all the way across. And I am working on one side of the V. I believe that's the easiest way to work in the chains. Don't worry about working in the back bump in this case, because we are going to do a perimeter round around the entire scarf when we finish, and none of this foundation chain will be, it won't look like this. You will have a slip stitch added to that, which will make it look a lot better than it does. All right, so go ahead and work those 241 single crochets. So we're going to begin row 2, and this is called the low front ridge. I've gone ahead and I've chained 1, and we're only going to work in the front loop. We're going to skip this first stitch, but this will not affect our overall stitch count because it's what we do in row 3 by working in the remaining loop that maintains the stitch count. So we skip that first stitch, and in the second and the rest, we're going to work a slip stitch. Just like this. Make sure that your slip stitches are not overly tight, but in a relaxed manner. That way, the row will come out well. So go ahead and work those slip stitches all the way across. And you should have 240 of these, since we are going to have one less since we skipped that first stitch. So go ahead and work that all the way across. So after working that all the way across, we're going to turn, chain 1, and now working in the remaining loop, you can see them, they're right here, we're going to work single crochets in each of those remaining loops. And you should have 241 stitches at the end of this row. And for the record, I am not counting the turning chains. Recently, some new crocheters have asked me that if the turning chains are included in the stitch count, and the answer is no. Those are considered turning chains, not stitches in a row. That is an excellent question. Okay, so we're just going to work this all the way across. Let me show you what happens is it forms this beautiful ridge. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row, working in that remaining loop. So now we're going to start the arrow stitch. The arrow stitch is worked in 2 rows, so this is row 1 of the arrow stitch, but it's also row 4 of the design. We're going to start with a chain 3, and we're going to skip the first 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3. We're going to work a treble crochet in the next stitch. And for those of you who follow my channel regularly, I am starting this stitch just slightly different than normal. So I'm starting right from the chain 3. Working behind the treble crochet, we're going to work a double crochet in each of the 3 stitches that I just skipped. So let's pause and take a look at that. Okay, and this is what we're going to do all the way across the row. We prepare for our treble crochet, skip the next 3 stitches, treble crochet in the next stitch. Working behind this stitch, we're going to work double crochets in each of the 3 stitches that we just skipped. I'll show that to you one more time because I know some of you out there have never seen this before. Skip the next 3 stitches, treble crochet in that next stitch, and working behind that treble crochet, we're going to double crochet in those 3 stitches that we just skipped. So we're going to go ahead and work this all the way across the row, and then we will end by working a double crochet in the last stitch. After working this arrow stitch, row 1, all the way across, we're going to work a double crochet in that last stitch. And this is what you should have so far. Okay, now we're going to work the next row. Now we're going to turn and we're going to work row number 5, and this is actually also row number 2 of the arrow stitch. The reason I'm saying row 1 or row 2 of the arrow stitch is you are going to be repeating this on the other side of the scarf. All right, so go ahead and we're going to chain 3. So after that chain 3, we're going to skip the first stitch. This turning chain actually takes the place of the first stitch in this particular row. We're going to skip the next 3 stitches, and then we're going to work a treble crochet in that next stitch. So if you're skipping the first stitch, it's actually going to be the 5th stitch in the row, and it should also be the same treble crochet from the previous row. After that, we're going to work in front of that treble crochet, and we're going to work double crochets in each of those last 3 stitches that we skipped. again, because we're not working in that first stitch of the row for this particular design. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that again with you, because starting the row is always a little bit different than continuing. So we're going to continue by skipping the next 3 stitches, treble crochet in the next stitch, and if you're not sure, verify that that treble crochet is worked in the same treble crochet from the previous row. And then we're going to work in front of that stitch, and we're going to work double crochets in each of those 3 double crochets that we skipped. I'm going to work this with you one more time. Skip the next 3 stitches and double crochet. I'm sorry, treble crochet in the next stitch, which should also be a treble crochet from the previous row. And working in front of that stitch, we're going to double crochet in the 3 stitches that we skipped. Okay, and the back side is facing as we work row 5, but let me just do a quick turn and show you how beautiful this arrow stitch looks. So you can see the arrows very clearly defined, and yes, there will be holes here that are created with using these stitches. I get a lot of questions as to whether it's okay that there are holes in this stitch, and the answer is absolutely. That's exactly what we want. Okay, so go ahead and work this all the way across the row, and I'll show you how the row ends. After working this all the way across, we work a double crochet in the turning chain. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we have. And so you see this beautiful arrow all the way across the row. Now the next 2 rows are quite simple. We're going to chain 1, and we're going to work a single crochet in each stitch all the way across the row. Once we get to the end of the row, we do not work in the turning chain. We only work in each of the stitches, and then we will chain 1, turn, and then work 1 single crochet in each stitch across the row. This is what you should have after completing 7 rows. Now for rows 8 and 9, we're going to repeat the low front ridge rows, just like we did for rows 2 and 3. We're going to go ahead and repeat that for rows 8 and 9. And as you recall, we skipped that first loop of the first stitch, and working only in the front loops, we work slip stitch in every front loop all the way across the row. We do not work in the turning chain, just as a reminder. And then after we complete row number 8, we will chain 1 and turn, and we will work single crochets in the remaining loops all the way across. And if you have a hard time finding where that loop is, you can fold this over and you can see the single crochets clearly, and then just go up into those loops. So again, after the end of row 7, you should have 241 stitches. When you work the row with the slip stitches, you will have 1 fewer, which will make that 240 stitches. And then when you chain 1 and work in the back loop, you'll come back to 241 stitches, because we're working in every stitch and we only skipped the first loop here. Okay, and just to let you know, the reason we do that is it keeps it from, it prevents a bulge from forming here with the chain 1, and the chain 1 actually lays in front of where the first stitch is. So that's the method behind the madness there. Okay, so go ahead and complete rows 8 and 9 of the low front. This is using the low front ridge. This is what you should have after completing 9 rows. Now we're going to do something very, very important. We're going to change our crochet hook. We're going to change to the next size up, which is a size L, or 11 or 8.00 millimeter. We do this because the popcorn stitch does tend to pull more tightly, so we need to size up to a larger hook. If you don't do that, you will notice that it will pull on the other rows. So make sure that you upsize the hook. We're going to chain one. We're going to single crochet in that very first stitch. Then we're going to chain one. We're going to skip the next stitch, and in the next stitch we are going to work a popcorn, and we work that by working 4 single crochets in the same space. Then we pull up a loop. They're going to reinsert our hook into the first of those 4 single crochets, grab that loop, and then pull it through, and it should make a little popcorn for you. Then we're going to chain one to close up the top, skip the next stitch, and in the next stitch we do it all over again. We work a single crochet, chain one, skip the next stitch, popcorn in the next stitch by working 4 single crochets, pull up a loop, insert into that first of the 4 single crochets, grab that loop and pull it through, and then give it a chain at the top. I'll do this one more time. Skip the next stitch. Now be careful that you don't skip too many stitches here. Just skip one, and the next stitch work a single crochet, chain one, skip another stitch, and then we work the popcorn again. We do that by working 4 single crochets, pull up a loop, insert into the first of those 4 stitches, put it back on the loop, and make sure that you pull the loop down, so don't leave it to be a big loop, just a normal size, or about the size of the circumference of the hook, and then give it a chain, and you're ready to do it all over again. So go ahead and work this across the row, and I'll show you how the row ends. As I come to the end, I'm going to skip the next stitch and single crochet in the last stitch, and this is what you should have after completing 10 rows. For row 11, which is row 2 of the popcorn, we're going to chain 1, single crochet in the first stitch, and then single crochet in the next stitch, which is that chain 1 space at the top of the popcorn. Chain 1, and then we're going to work a single crochet in the next chain 1 space, and that's what we're going to do all the way across. We're going to work chain 1, and we're going to work a single crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, and single crochet in the next chain 1 space, which is in between the popcorns, and do that all the way across. Chain 1, single crochet in top of the next popcorn, chain 1, and single crochet in the next chain 1 space between the popcorn. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row. I'm going to work a single crochet in the top of that last popcorn, chain 1, and a single crochet in the last chain 1 space right next to it, and after that do not chain 1, but go right into the next stitch and work a single crochet just like that. So that ends row 11. Now for row number 12, it's going to be very similar to row 10, but the way you start and end this row is going to be slightly different, so that the popcorns can alternate, and I'll show you what that means. We're going to chain 1. This is for row 12. Single crochet in that first stitch, chain 1, and then we're going to single crochet in that first chain 1 space like that. Chain 1, and this is where we begin our repeat. We're going to work a popcorn in the next chain 1 space, just like we've been working those. Give it a chain, and then single crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, and then work another popcorn in the next chain 1 space. So we're basically alternating a popcorn in a chain 1 space, and then a single crochet in the next one with chain 1s in between. Okay, so, and of course the chain 1 with the popcorn is the chain that closes the top. And then single crochet in the next space, chain 1, etc. And you see how the popcorns are alternating. That's what you want. If your popcorns are not alternating like that, then you want to pull out this row and try again. Okay, so go ahead and work that all the way across the row, and I'll show you how the row ends. At the end of row 12, I've continued in my stitch pattern with the popcorn, chain 1, single crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, and then we're going to skip the next stitch and single crochet in the last single crochet. So that's how row 12 ends. So for row 13, it's very similar to row 11. We're going to chain 1, we're going to single crochet in that first stitch, and then go directly into a single crochet in that next chain 1 space. And then we begin the chain 1 and single crochet in the chain 1 spaces only. Of course, the chain 1 space at the top of the popcorn, chain 1, and then the chain 1 space in between the popcorns. Chain 1, single crochet in the top of the popcorn. So go ahead and work that all the way across the row. After working the single crochet, chain 1, we're going to work just a single crochet in that last chain 1 space, and then another single crochet in the last stitch. Make sure you do not work a chain in between those last 2 stitches. Okay, now we're going to chain 1, turn, and row 14 is going to be pretty much the same as row 10, except that we are working it now in the row with the single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. So I'll go ahead and work this row with you. We're going to work a single crochet in that first stitch, chain 1, and now working only in the chain 1 spaces, we work a popcorn in the next chain 1 space, make sure we find the right place for that first stitch. There we go. And complete that popcorn and the chain 1 at the top, single crochet in the next chain 1 space, chain 1, and you understand the routine. Popcorn in the next chain 1 space. Chain 1 and single crochet in the next space and chain 1. And let's take a look at how the popcorns are alternating. You see how they alternate evenly. So row 14 should be aligned up vertically the same as row number 10. So go ahead and complete row 14. Row 14 ends with a single crochet in the last stitch, the same way that row 10 ended. So now I want to give you a larger assignment. We're going to repeat rows 11, that's the row that follows the popcorn row. So row 11, 12, 13, and 14, we're going to work those 4 rows 3 times more, and then we're going to work row 11 and then row 12 once more, and then after that we'll work the row to discontinue the popcorn. You're going to have 10 rows with the popcorn in them, so it'll be 10 popcorns across. and then we'll work a row to discontinue this row. So make sure that you end with the front side facing and on a popcorn row, because the row that we work after that will get us back to our stitch count for working the rest of the project. I'll go ahead and put a time mark across the bottom of the screen so that if you need additional stitch support in working rows 11 through 14, you can watch that section of the video a few times so you don't have to go it by memory. After completing all of those popcorn rows, this is what the width of the scarf should look like. Okay, and just to remind you that we should have 10 popcorn rows. There are actually 20 rows of the popcorn section, but only half of those are popcorns worked with the front side facing. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of those. Now for row 29, this is the last of the popcorn section. We're going to work the row that discontinues this popcorn stitch, and we're going to do something very important again. We were using the large L or 11 or 8.00 millimeter crochet hook, or something comparable to that if you had to upsize or downsize. And we're going to change to the smaller hook again, and in my case this is the K or 10.5 or 6.50 millimeter. All right, so let's go ahead, and I'm going to turn, and we're going to work this row together. Okay, so to begin row 29, we start with a chain 1. And again, don't forget to make sure that you're using the smaller size crochet hook. Okay, we're going to work a single crochet in that very first stitch. And then in the next chain 1 space, we're going to work 2 single crochets. And basically what we're going to do is work 2 single crochets in each chain 1 space, all the way across the row, and including the last stitch. In the last stitch, we will also be working 2 single crochets. So go ahead and work that across the row, 2 single crochets in each stitch. And when you get to the end of the row, make sure you work 2 single crochets in that very last stitch. This will bring your stitch count back to 241 single crochets, and that is not including the chain 1 space or the chain 1 at the beginning of the rows. After we complete that, let me give you a large assignment. So again, once you complete the row to discontinue the popcorn, we're going to go back all the way to row 2. This is where we worked the low front ridge, those 2 rows, followed by the 2 rows of the arrow stitch, followed by 2 rows of single crochet, and then 2 more rows of the low front ridge, rows 1 and 2. And so let me give you the numbers. This would be for rows 30 through 37. I'm going to have you go back and repeat rows 2 through 9 once more. And if you need stitch support, I'll put a little time mark at the bottom of the video screen so that you can go back to that and work those stitches should you need the video support. After you do that, I will show you how to work the perimeter round and the final fringe. All right, I've just completed repeating those rows and ending with the second row of the low front ridge, which was the row of single crochets right here. And let's go ahead and take a look at this. This is the width. I will give you a much better picture of that in just a few minutes, but just to show you that I have worked the arrow on both ends of this scarf. Now we are ready to work the perimeter round, and we're going to start that with the front side facing, so you would have to turn after the end of that last row. We're going to start with the chain 1. We're going to skip the first stitch. Now we're going to work slip stitches, but through both of the loops. This is just going to be an edging to try to even everything out. So we're just going to work slip stitch, and I'm still using the smaller of the crochet hooks. Now if your slip stitches are extremely tight and you're one of those who needs to go up to the larger size hook, do that, but do be careful that the slip stitches don't get too large. Okay, so, but I'm going to maintain the same size K hook, and we're just going to work slip stitches all the way until we get to the end of this row. And then once we get to the end of this row, we're going to turn a corner, and I'll show you what to do next. But for now, work all of those slip stitches. So after you work those slip stitches all the way across the long edge, and you should notice that it is helping that last row to kind of lay more flat instead of being off to the right. So after turning 90 degrees to work along the row ends, I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to work my first single crochet in the same space as the last place where I worked. And then we're going to chain 1, and we're just going to work in a relaxed, even way across the bottom of this this scarf. I'll just work it with you. So you want to make sure that these are worked evenly across the bottom and that they're not, you know, pulled too tightly or too close together. And so just kind of work that all the way across to the corner, and I'll give you the count once I get to the corner and explain how to continue this perimeter round. Okay, now that I've worked all the way across the row ends, I have a total of 20 single crochets and chain 1 spaces. That's not including the chain 2 corners that is going to be on both of the corners. So again, you should have worked approximately 20 single crochets and chain 1 spaces. Now, if you have more, that's not a problem. You just need to remember that however many you have on one end, that you do the same on the other end of the scarf, just so that it looks even. The main thing is that it is crocheted evenly across the row ends. And we will be tying in the tassels for the knotted fringe in the chain 1 spaces. We're not going to necessarily fill every one or every other one, but just make sure that you have the same number on both ends for now. And again, 20 would be optimal. So now we're going to turn 90 degrees to work along the foundation chain. We're going to chain 2, and just to make it symmetrical to the other side, we're going to work a single crochet, but only in that same space where the last single crochet was worked, so that that corner is clearly defined. Now, working in the remainder of that foundation chain, we are going to work slip stitches in each stitch all the way across, and this again is going to help to bring out that first row or so that it will be even and lay flat. So go ahead and work those slip stitches all the way to the next corner. When you get to the corner after that, we're going to repeat the same thing that I just showed you here on the other row end. And when you get to the last corner, you're going to form that last corner and then join with a slip stitch to the very first stitch of the round and fasten off. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that and hide any loose ends, and then I will show you how to make the knotted fringe. So to make our fringe, you're going to need a sturdy book or a piece of cardboard. When you measure this with a measuring tape, it is approximately 24 inches all the way around. So you're going to end up with a strand that is about 24 inches long. And we're going to need the yarn, and you're going to need a pair of sharp scissors. Make sure you have a pair that will actually cut well and easily. Take those old paper cutting scissors out of the way and get some fabric scissors or something that's not going to gnaw on the yarn. Okay, now as we begin to wrap this book, let me give you some numbers. We're going to make these tassels out of 5 strands of these 24-inch strands. So each will have 5. You have approximately, well, exactly actually 11 tassels. So 5 times 11 is 55, and you have 2 ends times 2, so that's 110 strands that you're going to need that are approximately 24 inches long. And I say approximately because we are going to trim these just to make them all even at the end. Okay, so we're just going to wrap this loosely like this. So that's 5, so that's 1 tassel. That's 2. That's 3. So that's 4 sets of 5, and okay, so I have wrapped this 11 times, I'm sorry, 5 times 6. Okay, so now we're going to cut these, and what's nice about a book is there's a little indentation. It doesn't even, not even going to hurt the book at all. You probably don't want to use your best book, but or you can use a piece of cardboard cut to a 12-inch size. So if you don't want to use your book. All right, so now we have this beautiful fringe, and when you put this on, a lot of times the yarn will be a little bit curly, and I'm going to show you how to deal with that in just a bit. But let me go ahead and show you how to put on one group of these. So I'm going to pick out 5 strands, and I'm going to put the rest aside. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to even these up so that they are all even at the top there. Don't worry if they're not perfectly even. Like I said, we're going to trim these, and then make sure that these are nice and even, and then estimate the halfway point, and that's close. Okay, so I have my finger right up here at the halfway point, and go ahead and pull on that, and I'm going to grab them, just hold them like this. Okay, so now I have the tassel ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and reorient this a little bit. So I'm going to start right here in the chain 2 corner. Okay, and I'm taking my hook, crochet hook. It doesn't really matter what size. Definitely try one at least the size K, at least size K that we used for the project, because you have a lot of strings to pull through at once. So I'm going to come from the back into the chain 2 space. Now they're only going to be chain 1 spaces going across, but we'll start with the chain 2 space, and I'm going to put all the strands over the hook like this and bring it down. Put all the other strands in front of that and pull these through like this, and then give it a tug, and there you go. You have the tassel attached. And I'm going to actually show you 2 different ways to do the fringe. I'm going to show you just the plain tassels to start, and then I'm going to show you the optional knotted fringe after that. So let's go ahead and do this again. Go back to my yarn supply. I'm going to take 5 strands again, even them up, and go ahead and fold them over. Try to even this out on the end. It doesn't have to be perfect again, but just do the best you can. And then we're going to go to the chain 1 spaces. We're going to skip the first chain 1 space, and in the next chain 1 space, bring the hook up from the back side, pull the strands down, put all of them over your hook, and pull them through the loop. And there we have two tassels attached. Okay, now I'm going to show you the other side where I have all of my tassels attached to this end. Let me say one thing about this is as you're going across, there's going to be one extra, and you can decide at the end if you want to put it in the last chain one space or the last corner. I did put mine in the last corner and just kind of split the difference with that other tassel, and you can just arrange them however you want evenly, or you can even choose to have fewer. It's all up to you. Okay, so now I have attached all of these tassels, but I don't know if you can notice this, but look how wavy this is. And that's because this is the yarn that was on the inside of the ball. It's not as straight as the other yarn that's on the outside. So what are you going to do if that happens? Well, let me show you. We're going to cure this in just a matter of 30 seconds. I have a handheld steamer. I've already plugged it in. I have filled it with water, and I am using the distilled water. It has fewer minerals in it, so it won't be spitty towards your clothes, if that makes sense. If you ever have ironed with an iron that makes a lot of noise, it's because of the chemicals and minerals that are in the water coming out of the tap. So it's always better to use a distilled water. Okay, this is a steamer I got off of Amazon for in a ballpark of $20. It's great for traveling. It takes about 30 seconds for the water to heat, and then once it does, steam comes out. And when that happens, and do be careful, it's really hot, it can burn you. What we do is we apply the steam, and it takes the curl. I don't know if you can see this, it's at an angle, but it takes the curl right out of the yarn very, very easily, very quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this for just a couple minutes. And this will not harm the fabric either. Less than a minute later, and this yarn is beautifully straightened. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. You can see how straight this is. Now I'm going to go ahead and push this back because I want you to see what I'm going to do next. If you want just tasseled finish, you can do that, and I would recommend that you go ahead and trim the ends. See, the ends do need some trimming. You can just trim them up. You could even take an inch or so off, just straight across, and it'll be beautifully even. Okay, but let's suppose you want to do the knotted fringe, and let me show you how to do that. I'm going to go from right to left, and I'm going to use all of the strands in my first knot, all in this end tassel, and I'm going to take 5 of the next. I'm going to split it right in half, just kind of eyeball it, and I'm going to take 2 fingers, wrap them around like this, come in the front, and then pull them into the hole. And what you want to do here is you want about an inch, approximately. You can measure it if you want, or you can just kind of eyeball it. That's what I'm going to do right now. And the great thing about this is if you don't like where the knot lands, you can take it out and try again and again and again until you get it to where you like it. Okay, I'm going to go with that. That looks good. And I'm going to use that for my measuring, my visual measurer. Okay, so now I have the 5 tassels from that same, or the 5 strands from that same tassel. And I'm going to take 5 from the next, and I'm going to do this again. Fingers behind, wrap them, cross them in front, and then pull them around. And try to land this one as you pull on it, just gently, to get it to be about the same place as this. This is going to be looking a little bit different because it has fewer strands, but that's okay. No one is going to notice that. That'll be our little secret. Okay, take 5 strands from the next one. Again, 2 fingers, wrap them around, cross them in front, and then bring them underneath. By doing the wraps and these knots in the same direction, it'll give it a more uniform look. Okay, so now we have 3. See how easy this is?
You do have to go slow though. You don't want to rush this. And again, take 5 more from the next one. Really doesn't matter which 5. And we're going to do that again. Fingers, 2 fingers in front, wrap it around, cross in the front, and then bring it underneath. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's pretty close. Well, I'm going to go ahead and finish this out. And when I get to the one on this end, I'm going to take half of these that are remaining, and then I will add them with all of the strands of the last tassel. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that, and then I'll trim this with you. Okay, so now our fringe is done on one end. There is still one thing left to do, and that would be to trim it. And so let me just show you. I'm going to trim just a couple of these, and it's okay if they're not all perfectly the same. So you may even want to go according to the shorter strands in the tassel, which is what I'm going to do. And again, very important that you have sharp scissors. That looks pretty good. So let's take a look at the next one. And I'm going to trim about 1 inch. All right. I'm going to go ahead and work this all the way across. And again, it's not about being perfect. You want it to be, you know, reasonably even. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish trimming this all the way across, and then I'm going to finish the other end.
I hope you enjoyed making my arrows and popcorn super scarf today. If you did, I would love to hear from you. Please always feel free to comment in the comments section below. God bless. Bye-bye.